Wiley School, just to the southeast of Klein School, and just to the northeast of Heritage Christian Academy. That is where we are seeing a little bit of that broad rotation within this storm. Every now and then when we kind of get the latest scan from this, you can kind of see some of that rotation that we do have in place. Again, this is not a confirmed tornado, but this is where we are seeing that opportunity for some rotation again within this storm. So right here, let me point this out for you. So right here, you can see some of this rotation that we do have in place just to the north of Tazewell. Again, so moving towards the Cedar Fork Road area. If you do live in this area, if you are awake right now and you are hearing me name off an area that sounds familiar to you, you do want to make sure you're getting into your safe place, as we are looking at a storm that is capable of producing an isolated tornado. This tornado warning is in effect for Claiborne, Hancock, and Lee counties, and this will be in effect until 4 o'clock this morning. This is a part of a much larger line of some very strong storms moving through the area. As we've talked about, if you've been with us throughout the last few hours, we look at the strength and intensity of these storms based off of what we're seeing with lightning. And when you look at this line without even really putting it into motion, you can see that most of that lightning that we do have in place is going to be for parts of Union County, Claiborne County, moving into across northeast Tennessee. We're also watching severe thunderstorm warnings. You'll probably hear some of those rumbles of thunder making your way into the Central Valley as well. This storm is zipping right along, folks. It's moving rather quickly through the region, up to around 40 to 50 miles an hour. But that tornado warning that we are watching right now, again, is in effect for northeast Tennessee. If you're watching in the La Follette area, if you're watching in the Huntsville area, your main threat for severe weather is over. As this line continues to zip its way through the region, this is where we are seeing that main concern again for some very strong storms. So let's kind of zoom on in a little bit more, talk more about this tornado warning, hence the reason why we are back on TV. So again, tornado warning, that is in effect for Claiborne, Hancock, and Lee counties. Again, let's take another look at the velocity scan. So we're still kind of seeing rotation doesn't look quite as impressive as what it did just with some of those later scans. We mentioned this before. Again, these storms like to breathe, folks, and so they kind of get that moment to breathe. It doesn't look like that notch is quite as impressive, but it is, if you do see some of that rotation again, it is going to be just to the north of the Tazewell community. In fact, a lot of this rotation has really started to weaken down, but again, these storms like to breathe. We're still going to be monitoring this situation very closely, but it does look like it is continuing to slide its way north of Tazewell. Even without some of this rotation in place, we're looking at some very strong winds up to around 60 miles per hour possible. And again, that does have the possibility of bringing in some downed trees, power outages, with multiple areas looking at those wind gusts again, right around upper 50s and lower 60s. And again, this is why we do have that severe thunderstorm warning, in addition to the opportunity for some of those strong storms bringing in that chance for again, the opportunity for an isolated tornado. That is why we do have that tornado warning that was put into effect for Claiborne, Hancock, and Lee County. So coming from the National Weather Service, again, they are saying at around 3:13, so this was just about 10 minutes ago, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located over New Tazewell, and that was going to be moving off to the northeast around 40 miles per hour. The main concerns with this will be that opportunity for some rotation. Again, and Tavian, you might want to chime in on this, but I do think that a lot of that rotation has really started to more widen out a little bit, so not quite as much of a concern with this system. Still going to be watching it, but also looking at that potential for seeing up to around 60 mile per hour wind gusts. So again, you are looking at this rotation too. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's definitely something that has been broadening as it's made its way through. A lot of times with these storms that we've been seeing, when we first get that tornado warning, we're starting to see it that is tightening for a moment. And you got to remember that these storms kind of breathe, they pulse, they go in and out. And so going with that, it looks like we're watching that moment where this rotation is starting to loosen a little bit. We're starting to see a little bit more of a defined line between that red and that green compared to a bit of a mixing that we might see. Now, of course, Tazewell's an area that is a lot closer to Morristown, a lot closer to our radar, so it's easy to see some of those two colors that can get closer together. But really what we look for in moments like this is like a speck of red or a dot of red amongst a sea of green, or vice versa, because then that shows that a the piece of that wind is kind of out of place and starting to kind of throw things out of whack, create some of that rotation that we're going to be watching.
Okay.
But honestly, oh yeah, what's up?
Well, not that I was just so thankful that you gave all that information. I just wanted to get your input too on some of that rotation as well. You get to hear Tavian and I digest some of these storms live when we have our microphones on, folks. So again, yes, we're watching that tornado warning. This is going to be in effect for Claiborne, Hancock, and Lee counties. I know at one point we're probably going to have both of us just kind of giving some input, but we're still kind of watching some of this broad rotation. We will stay on the air, folks, as long as needed, as long as this tornado warning is looking like it is bringing in some concerns across this area. So if you are looking at your city and you see your city on this little blue box right now, you do want to make sure that you are taking shelter in the innermost portion of your house. So this is going to include Mason Springs, moving right into your area, the Sulphur Hollow Road area, Big Creek, Evanston, Wilson Hill. Again, we're watching this storm capable of producing a tornado make its way into your region. It is moving quickly off to the northeast, right around 35 to 40 miles an hour. And again, when we're talking about this storm, we're saying that it has the capability of producing a tornado. This has not necessarily been a confirmed tornado, but we have had some rotation. Now, this area of rotation that we're continuing to watch is right around the Tazewell community. It does look like it is broadening out just a little bit, and as you heard Tavian mention, this being so close to the National Weather Service in Morristown, this is going to give us more of a clear insight as to what we're seeing. So Tavian, even without us having a confirmed tornado with this storm, it is still packing in some very strong wind gusts.
Very much so, and that's kind of the biggest part about these tornado warnings, is that even though we may not see an actual tornado reaching down to the ground, we still have those powerful winds. We're still watching some of that rotation, which can still pack a punch as it's traveling across. I did briefly want to talk about how we do have, am I seeing a second tornado warning right here? I sure am, and that's going to be going until 4:15, including Claiborne, Grainger, Hancock, Hawkins, and Lee County. So with this one that we're watching here in the Tazewell area, it seems like maybe it shifted a little bit further off towards the south. So now I see maybe a little bit of a bow that we look here in this corner, getting towards the east of New Tazewell, maybe getting a little bit closer towards Ritchie. But what I had here with this timeline was based a little bit further on this first warning that was going to be in Ritchie, Riley, Thompson within the next 10 minutes, Sneedville. You are now essentially between these two warnings that we're watching right now, and then getting to Jonesville, Donna, within the next half hour or so. It looks like with some of that rotation, we're looking around this line right here, this little section, as we get to the north of Thornhill. And again, talking about how we're getting closer to that radar, it can get a little bit trickier to place. But yep, you're seeing it right there. Rebecca's throwing that circle right there. So we're looking at this kind of space here between some of this green and some of this red. We're starting to get some of that rotation. They're flirting with each other, getting a little bit closer, and this is going to be reaching further into the area. Rebecca, you can actually clear the outlook, the kind of timing, just because it looks like that is going to be a little bit of a switch. Sneedville coming within this next 15 minutes or so, and that's an area that's between both of these. So as you get further towards Hancock County, towards even a bit of Hawkins County as well, yeah, there we go. So we're seeing a little bit of Easton. You guys are going to be in that much wider breadth. This actually second tornado warning is spread out a lot further and wider than we're seeing with this first one. So this first one reaching about as far north as Ewing, Virginia. Meanwhile, this second one, Sneedville, is essentially smack dab between the two, and that's going to be reaching further up into parts of southwestern Virginia as well. So this is a true upper East Tennessee system that we're watching. I very briefly wanted to talk about some of the storm reports that we're seeing all throughout the area, because now these secondary impulses that we're watching with these tornado warnings, these are partially coming from parts of the line that we're bowing out a little bit further towards the southwest. So these are areas that we've seen golf ball size hail reports. We have seen very powerful winds getting upwards of 50, even 60 miles per hour. And now some of that energy is pushing further over into the east compared to some of the first couple of storms that we had. Oh, come on, Power Flash. Compared to the first couple of storms that we had that were pushing further down into the south. Now, that Power Flash, because we are already seeing quite the event as we speak all throughout the area. As we look into the city of Knoxville, we've got that line that's now pushing into our area, in particular, the city of Knoxville. I'm looking at a camera right now that Rebecca has up, our downtown camera, and we're seeing lightning flashes, heavy rain, can't really see a thing, misty conditions. And so that's essentially what we can expect getting from parts of southeastern Kentucky, Whitley, Knox County, down through Tazewell, Maynardville, Knoxville, now somewhat passing Oak Ridge. But Lenore City, you guys are up next. Sweetwater, Athens, Spring City, you guys are still surrounded by some of those storms, but it looks like things are maybe just starting to calm down for you guys. Speaking of calming down, I did briefly want to show that people in Upper East Tennessee, we look into a little bit of Campbell, Scott, Morgan, Fentress, even out into Overton County, even a good bit of Cumberland County, now seeing some of those calmer conditions with the overall line having passed them. So they are still likely to see some moderate rain. Some of that could become maybe heavy at times, a rumble of thunder or two, and you also could likely still hear the thunder from all of these systems that are passing by you at this point. But just wanted to share that you guys do still have the opportunity, despite things now being a lot calmer. So this entire area right now, from Tazewell all the way down to the Central Valley and into the plateau, still seeing some of those stronger storms. But Rebecca, I'm gonna send it to you for a sec, because that camera view is interesting.
It is actually intense, folks. As you can get a glimpse over downtown Knoxville, you know, we were taking a look and you can see those lightning flashes that we have here from this viewpoint, and then just moments later you can hear those rumbles of thunder. So we do have a very strong storm that is pushing its way into the downtown Knoxville area. This storm, again, in particular across the northeast corner of Knox County, again, is severe. I wanted to recap and talk about the big picture point of view, folks, because things right now are really just starting to reach their full potential with this cold front that's moving in. It's this main line right here that is going to be bringing in that threat for severe weather. Back here, folks, yes, you may still get a few rumbles of thunder, but those storms, again, are not forecast to be severe. So if you are seeing this main line that's already moving its way through, this is going to, again, really start to lose a lot of its potential. We are watching, again, multiple tornado warnings across northeast Tennessee. And I want to show you the velocity from more of a widespread view in just a moment. It's really cool to see. And then we also are watching this cluster of storms that's meeting up with this line down into the Southern Valley. However, I do think that this front is moving far too quick, and so I don't really necessarily think we'll have a big chance here across East Tennessee for those storms to merge. The Southern Valley, yes, we're still going to be watching this, but I really just think they're outrunning that cluster of storms that we have. So again, I want to show you this. So this is a look at some of the velocity that we have from more of a local view, and this kind of gives you an idea of that notch that we were watching. Remember, Tavian was mentioning the word notch. Now look, just around the Tazewell community, where you kind of see that little bit of a notch that comes through, where you get that kind of that little bit of a hook that goes right to the north of the Tazewell area. It's not quite as impressive at this moment, but at one point, this is where we were seeing those bigger concerns for seeing the opportunity for what could potentially be that tornado that we are continuing to watch. Again, this is not a confirmed tornado, but right here is where we are seeing that opportunity for some rotation. Also curious for some stronger winds that we do have moving into this area as well. Could be seeing a little bit of a notch within this system. Again, as you've seen, we do have multiple tornado warnings that are in effect, and this is going to be for this storm capable of producing a tornado. Again, as we continue to get multiple scans that come in, once we're nice and tight and close on this, you can really get a glimpse of some of those brighter colors. The brighter the colors, the more intense those winds are expected to be. And so it's these two areas in particular that I am continuing to watch some of that rotation. The first one was initially right around the Tazewell community. That one's kind of started to broaden out just a little bit, and now it does look like we're seeing that opportunity for a little bit of some rotation just to the north of the Thornhill area, again, where we still have some very gusty winds at this moment, folks. Again, watching the potential for again, some broad rotation. This is going to be a part of both of those tornado warnings that are in effect this morning. If you're waking up, I have quite a few people that again are just joining us this morning. When it does come to some of these storms, they're probably waking quite a few of you up. So good morning. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. We are looking at that tornado warning in effect for Claiborne, Hancock, and Lee counties. As this storm pushes off to the east, they will start to again take out those warnings for areas that are not impacted. So right now, Tazewell, the worst of the storm, is making its way off to your east. You'll still want to be prepared, though, for some very gusty winds, but it does look like most of that rotation has now pushed its way off to the east. Claiborne, Grainger, Hancock, Hawkins, and Lee County in Virginia, you do have a tornado warning that is in effect until 4:15 this morning. Again, this is for the potential for a storm that has the capability of producing an isolated tornado. Again, both of these are going to be the reason why we're staying on air likely until the start of our morning show. And then once we do get into the morning show, folks, we may end up, again, staying on air, really just seeing how some of these storms continue to kind of stay with us and the intensity and the strength that we have. So again, we're still watching that potential opportunity for some rotation. This is going to be just around the Thornhill area. And so again, watching that's going to be right around Highway 25E to the northeast of Thornhill, moving closer to the Sneedville area, just to the north of Rogersville if this does hold together. Mooresburg, if this does hold together. Again, we are watching a storm capable of producing a tornado. It's moving off rather quickly to the northeast, around 40 miles per hour. So let me give you a little bit closer view of this time frame. So again, if you do see your city within this polygon, you do want to make sure you are taking shelter at this time, as we do have that storm that is very strong, and this is going to be again continuing to push its way off to the northeast. I know some of these areas may be dated, but if you see some that sound familiar, you do want to again make sure that you are taking shelter, especially if your city is within this red polygon. So Evanston, roughly 10 to 15 minutes away. Big Creek, roughly 5 to 10 minutes away. Sneedville, roughly 10 to 20 minutes away. Moving into the Unicoi school area, this is going to be roughly 20 to 25 minutes away if it does hold together. Again, this is going to be a tornado warning, and that's going to be in effect until 4:15 this morning for Claiborne, Grainger, Hancock, Hawkins, and Lee counties. Now, if you are joining us across the region, we do have quite a bit of some strong thunderstorm activity that is making its way through the area. Even seeing a few rumbles of thunder again here all across the region. We are seeing some stronger storms around the Dandridge area as well. We'll try to give you a glimpse of that in just a moment. But you notice we have severe thunderstorm warnings. This is going to include parts of Dandridge. It's going to include parts of Knox County. We have that severe thunderstorm warning that's in effect for Claiborne, Grainger, Knox, and Union counties. You see the tagline on there saying tornado possible. Again, we're not seeing much rotation within this storm, but we are seeing some very gusty winds, and this could lead to some of those downed trees and power outages. And then also we do have that severe thunderstorm warning for Cock, Grainger, Hamblin, Jefferson, and Sevier counties. These storms are continuing to push their way off to the southeast, and they're moving rather quickly, anywhere between 35 to 45 miles an hour. So with these storms, again, we have the capability of producing up to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, not necessarily seeing the largest of hail within these storms. Most of these storms that we have had as of really early this morning have been up to penny to nickel size hail. Have not necessarily seen up to quarter size hail with these storms, but still bringing in some very heavy rainfall, bringing in some very strong gusty winds. So let me take another view with that tornado warning that we have. Again, I'm going to take away this time frame as this storm is moving rather quickly. But this tornado warning still in effect for Claiborne, Hancock, and Lee counties. Again, if you are watching from Tazewell, yes, you are still going to be hearing some rumbles of thunder, but the main threat for rotation within this storm has now pushed off to the east. So you can kind of take a little bit of a deep breath. But if you live right to the north of Bean Station, right to the north of Rogersville, if you live in the Kyles Ford area, if you see your area in this red polygon, you do need to take shelter into the lowest level of your house as we have a storm that is capable again of bringing in some rotation. So the area that I'm still continuing to watch is just to the northeast of the Thornhill community, where we could see a little bit of that rotation. Very gusty winds still going to be possible, folks. This is kind of a little bit more of an interesting area because at this point, folks, you see that right here. That is the radar that we have in Morristown. So once we get to this point in Morristown, the inflow and the outflow really starts to change the directions a little bit based off of where it's at again. So that's the radar that we have in Morristown. And this is where we are seeing that opportunity for some rotation. The brighter those colors get, the more of the tightening of rotation that we do have. So again, if you live just to the north of Bean Station, just to the north of Rogersville, we are watching a storm that is capable of producing a tornado. Again, this has not been confirmed. This has all been radar indicated, but this is a storm that we're watching that is still very strong. And if it holds together, we're talking about Mooresburg, just to the north of your region, Rogersville, just to the south of Sneedville, where we are seeing again that opportunity for a little bit of some broad rotation within this storm. I know it's early. I know it's in the middle of the night. We always want to remind people in these situations, folks, you have to have your mobile devices turned on, and hopefully they're charged, as you can follow us on TV with the latest information with some of these storms. We have not heard any reports again of seeing some damage across this region, but we are continuing to watch this again closely. So again, that storm that we're watching right now is continuing to show the potential for some rotation, maybe a little bit of some tightening and rotation. This is going to be just to the northeast of Thornhill, right around the Sneedville community. So this right here is the area that we're continuing to watch, where there is that capability of bringing in the opportunity for tornado. Again, this storm is moving off to the northeast right around 35 to 40 miles an hour. So this is going to be moving into the Klondike area, Stone Mountain School. If you recognize some of these regions, if you recognize what I'm saying right now, again, you do want to make sure that you are taking shelter. Let me kind of redo that tracking over one more time, folks. So again, moving off to the northeast, right around 35 to 40 miles an hour. But if you do hear me naming off some areas, you do have the capability of seeing a storm that is capable again of producing an isolated tornado. So again, this is going to be right around the Flat Gap Elementary School area, Klondike roughly 10 to 12 minutes away, Kyles Ford roughly 20 to 24 minutes away. Interesting to see what this last scan does. Again, it is some broad rotation. It's kind of making a little bit more of a shift off to the southeast. Willis, Belvins, again, if you see your city, if you see an area that you're familiar with and you go, oh my gosh, that's close to my region. Again, we are watching some broad rotation within this storm, which is why the National Weather Service has issued that tornado warning. And this tornado warning is forecast to be in effect for another 15 to 20 minutes. We'll see if they carry that on. But again, this is where we are seeing most of that rotation at place. We've had quite a busy, active couple of days behind us. And thankfully, after this, folks, it does look like we are going to see a much quieter Memorial Day. But this morning, things are very active across the region. So kind of recapping what we're seeing right now, we do have multiple special weather statements. And those special weather statements are going to be primarily for areas south of I-40. Severe thunderstorm warning going to be going across northeast Tennessee. And again, we are still tracking those 2 tornado warnings that we have across northeast Tennessee that will be in effect until 4:15. National Weather Service now just issued a new severe thunderstorm warning in addition to those tornado warnings that are in effect. Tavian, I'll toss it to you in just a moment, but let me get this tornado warning just to kind of recap and highlight that severe thunderstorm warning. Again, they are saying that there's a tornado possible within these storms. We're still watching some of that rotation that we have in place. Tornado warning in effect until 4 o'clock for Claiborne, Hancock, and Lee counties. Tornado warning in effect for Claiborne, Grainger, Hancock, Hawkins, and Lee counties again until 4:15 this morning. Tavian, I'm going to toss it over to you. I'm going to try and see if we're getting any more reports, but we'll have more information in just a moment, folks.
Yeah, so as of right now, in terms of storm reports in particular, we have not seen anything new, but we're still just looking at a lot of wind damage, some larger hail that we've seen fall further down in Tennessee, more so than what we've seen in Kentucky. Kentucky, as you can see, especially along the line here bordering Tennessee, that's where they've gotten a lot of their strongest wind damage. That's also where we've seen a couple of those tornado warnings, some of the ones here in parts of Bell and Whitley County being the first ones that got us up and started this morning. But I also wanted to take an opportunity to hit some of the power outages if some of my good friends in the booth might be able to, oh, look at that, how beautiful. So right now in Fentress County, I believe they were seeing around 800 people, around 700 people that were out of power. But I also wanted to talk about Pickett County. It's outside of our area, but they've got almost 2,000 people that do not have power. We look a bit further down throughout the area, we've got Campbell County. Further over here, they've got about 1,600 people without power. Union County, further towards its southeast, they've got around 800 people without power. And Knox County here in Tennessee, it's in a light blue, but it's still got about 3,500 people that are without power. Over in Kentucky, they've got a lot of that rainfall that's out of the way, but just to quickly mention mention some of those areas. Knox County, Kentucky has about 1,800 people without power. McCreary County has about 1,700 people. Whitley County has over 1,000. Bell County has around 600, and Harlan County has around 500. So just want to let everybody know about what we're seeing around the area, especially as those stronger rumbles of thunder start to move into the area. Guys, if we can move back to the graphics really quick. There we go. Wow. Thank you so much, guys. So that's all of what we're seeing here with the storm reports all across the area, but also to kind of talk about what we're seeing in terms of the general overview of those systems. Like Rebecca was showing you, we have that new that new severe thunderstorm warning that we're seeing further out here that gets into, looks like a bit of Hamilton County, Jefferson County, and even a bit of Cott County as well, as we even look at this cell that start to push its way out a little bit. But now we're seeing a warning or an alert of some kind as we look all down East Tennessee. So we're starting off with some of those severe thunderstorm warnings that are further in parts of Kentucky and southwestern Virginia. We have our 2 tornado warnings. This first one going until 4 o'clock, so it's got about 15 to 16 more minutes. This second one going until about 4:15, so a little over a half hour left in the both of those. And we're looking at some of that rotation that's now really started to exit out of Claiborne County, heading more so into Hancock, although it is on the broader end. All of these severe thunderstorm warnings that we're seeing here in parts of the Central Valley now pushing their way into upper East Tennessee. All of these severe thunderstorm warnings had that tornado possible tag on them. So seeing some of that broader rotation that maybe doesn't quite warrant a tornado warning just yet, but it's almost like a signal to us that they're watching it. We should do the same. And if that rotation gets tight enough, then they're likely going to be calling some of those tornado warnings as we look into the area. So we're seeing that as we get further down into the Central Valley, bit of Knox County, and at that point we're starting to see special weather statements. So in the severe thunderstorm warnings, most of them we were catching 60-mile-per-hour winds in a range from penny-sized to even quarter-sized hail. As we look a bit further down into the Central and Southern Valley, even getting into the Southern Plateau, you're seeing here Ray, Meigs, Bledsoe counties all under that as well. They're seeing also around 50-mile-per-hour winds and half-inch hail. So still some very strong impacts even for people that are not looking at severe weather. So I figured it'd be a good opportunity to just sort of take this step by step, focusing primarily on the severe thunderstorm warning. But again, we do have those tornado warnings that are sitting a little bit further up towards our northeast. We've got Hancock, Hawkins, Lee, and Scott County. And on the other side, we've got Grainger, Hamlin, Jefferson, and Sevier County. Both of them having that tornado possible tag, like I was showing you, some of that broader rotation that we're seeing in these swaths of storms that move through. Now, of course, this is getting closer to our radar that is sitting in Morristown. So it can be a little bit easier for things to, well, fly under the radar, for lack of better terms, because there's almost a little bit of a window, a little bit of a blank spot here, a blind spot, if you will, when you get too close to this radar. So it'll be a lot easier when they either get on the other side or we see more storms that pop up behind it. We look a bit further out, and for this entire line of storms, it started to push in amongst this little forecast. But if you're in Benton, Smithfield, Parksville, that's going to be coming within about 10 minutes or so. Hartford, Turtletown, it'll be coming in your direction within the next 10 minutes or so. You see Sevierville, you guys have those storms coming into your area. Von Orr, some of those stronger storms are sitting right on top of you as we speak. And again, Benton, you see right down there, it says about 17 minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes in a little bit quicker, maybe even closer to 10 minutes. And again, you see further out into the plateau, lighter rainfall at this point, a couple rumbles of thunder here and there, but they're generally seeing some calmer conditions from this point. So with this first line that we're seeing that's pushing through Bean Station right now, Alpha, you guys are seeing those storms. White Pine, you are about to see them as we speak. And of course, we've got this second cell here towards the east of White Pine that's also going to be meeting up with the rest of those storms. Speedwell, you guys are clear at this point. Coreyton, you guys are clear at this point. Even us here in Knoxville, you see here right here at the bottom of the screen, we've got a lot of those stronger storms that are now moving a little bit past our area. But let's move a bit closer into what we're seeing right there. Dandridge, you guys have got those storms upon you as we speak. Same with Lanier. We've got Sevierville, Bainbury. That's coming in within the next, well, minutes, really. Lanier, it has about 18 minutes, but at this point, those storms have really continued to move into that outlook. Tallahassee, those storms are going to be coming in your direction. Paint Rock, Sweetwater, you guys are seeing those storms. Harriman, you're still hearing a couple of rumbles of thunder, but it does look like that stronger line of storms is now past you at that point. Wartburg, Oak Ridge, you guys are now seeing some more general showers and power Hobble is included in that as well. We look up into Maynardville. You guys are mostly past some of those stronger storms too. We look a bit further down into the south, and you notice we have a little bit more of a general scattered thunderstorm sort of look. And this is also as we get closer into the Chattanooga area. We've been talking about some of those smaller systems that are pushing their way through parts of the Huntsville, Alabama region. And so that is where we're starting to get a little bit of that link up. So it's now moved past Huntsville, really getting in towards this northwestern Georgia, Chattanooga metropolitan area. And some of that energy and maybe some of that rotation could be heading into the Chattanooga area as well. But Rebecca, gonna send things over to you to see what you're seeing right now.
All right, thank you so much, Tavian. So I'm so glad that you were just talking about that, because truthfully, folks, things could have been a little bit more interesting in the Southern Valley. That wave of energy, that cluster of storms that Tavian was just mentioning right around the Chattanooga area, if we had not had this initial line make its way into our region right now, there is that potential, folks, and there still is that little bit of a potential. But if this had not happened quite as quickly as it did, I do expect that the Southern Valley would have had a much stronger outlook for some stronger storms, considering that area yesterday did not get quite the brunt of the storms as what we had here across the northern half of the region. So again, if you are watching, I'm going to quickly talk about the big picture point of view. I know we've had quite a few people who are now awake with us, joining us on social media, thanks to some of those rumbles of thunder that have been pushing their way through the area. Also getting a little bit more of an update when it comes to some of those power outages. I do know that we have quite a few folks now here, even in Knox County. We're looking at roughly 8,000 people out in Knox County. And so we're also seeing almost 900 people out in Union County, 1,600 people out in Campbell County. So that does show the potential for these very gusty winds to bring in the opportunity for some damage across the area. So that's a quick look as to what we're seeing. Again, if you can kind of quickly highlight some of those regions. So that's Campbell County, that's Union County, and let's go down into Knox County as well, as where we are seeing, again, over 8,000 people without power at this moment. And guess what? The storms that made their way through most of Knox County weren't even severe, but we did have wind gusts up to around 55 miles an hour, and we had quite a bit of lightning within these storms. Now, again, we're still watching these tornado warnings that are in effect for northeast Tennessee. I do expect that we're seeing some weakening within these storms at one moment, and you've heard Tavian and I mention this multiple times, folks. A lot of these storms, they continue to breathe. And so even the discussion that we have on the National Weather Service chat page, again, constantly communicating with other people in this area. At one point, it looked like we were seeing a little bit of some tightening within these storms. And again, that's where you can always kind of get some of that concern. But then it's kind of broadened out just a little bit. We do have that initial tornado warning that is going to be in effect for Claiborne, Hancock, and Lee counties. We'll see if they continue on that tornado warning for Claiborne, Grainger, Hancock, Hawkins, and Lee counties, as that is still in effect now until 4:15 this morning. I want to take another little bit of a view at that velocity scan. Again, yeah, I'm still seeing some very gusty winds within this storm. If we are looking at the, it's a very interesting area. As you heard Tavian say, again, sometimes it can kind of be missed under the radar, as you just don't get quite the same viewpoint as to what you can get as it's moving into the radar. So let me loop this over the last hour, folks, and you can clearly see that notch as to why they issued that tornado warning. I want to pause this again. So this right here is when they issued that tornado warning. So it's going to be right around like the Thornhill area. That was when they first initially issued that. So that was roughly about 20-30 minutes ago. Even we went a little bit further off to our west, right around the Tazewell area. And so again, we've seen this storm capable of producing some rotation and some very gusty winds. But as time has gone on, and based off of the location again, we're just not getting quite as good of a glimpse as to what we're seeing within this storm. And so therefore, we're waiting location-wise to get a glimpse as to where we're at. Again, okay, so yeah, we are seeing a little bit of that rotation again. That's going to be possible right near to the south of Sneedville area. So heads up, this is going to be right near the Stony Gap School. And so that is something that we're going to continue to watch. Yeah, so now that we're starting to get a little bit of a bigger view of this, we are looking at some of that rotation again. That is possible just to the south of Sneedville, moving up towards the Eidson area. Still a little bit on the broad side, but still bringing in that possibility, hence the reason why the National Weather Service is keeping this tornado warning that is in effect until 4 to 4:15 again. So this is going to be for Claiborne, Grainger, Hancock, and Hawkins counties, again, moving off to the northeast. So if you live in the Rogersville area, I do expect this rotation to stay primarily to your north, but around the Eidson area, you do want to make sure, again, you are taking shelter as this strong storm capable of producing a tornado is moving into your area. And as this storm does continue to move and to breathe, they are going to continue to adjust some of these warnings. Interestingly enough, did they take away that tornado warning? Interesting. Okay. So they have canceled that warning for Claiborne, Grainger, Hancock, Hawkins, Lee, and Scott counties. So now we just have one tornado warning that is in effect for Claiborne, Hancock, and Lee counties. Or are they going to be expiring that one?
So as of right now, it looks like they have canceled the later one that goes until 4:15, but the earlier one that we've been working on this whole time that got us back onto the air, that's going till 4, that one does still seem to be active. I think they're still kind of looking at that cell that was further or closer to the Sneedville area, but as that continues to weaken and loosen, they're likely just going to let that one expire since it's only got about 5 minutes left in it at this point.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, so even with that, Tavian, thank you so much. That's some great news, folks. I feel like we need to give you a round of applause, honestly.
Oh, please.
We're going to continue to see, again, still some very strong storms. So now that we are kind of focusing on that tornado warning that is going to be expiring, folks, and once that does expire here at 4 a.m., we're going to take a little bit of a brief break. We're going to continue to get off the air once that tornado warning, again, does expire. So we have roughly 6 more minutes. But I do kind of want to recap the big picture point of view that we are seeing. So you notice a lot of boxes on the screen. It's basically going right up and down this line of some very strong storms moving through the area. Let me pause this for you and let me just explain this a little bit more. Again, that tornado warning is set to expire, hence the reason why they have changed the color and the formation of this box. We're not necessarily seeing as much rotation within the storm, which is some great news, folks. But this has been a system that we've been watching now for roughly the last 30 to 40 minutes. And this originally started right along that Tennessee and Kentucky border. We are looking at severe thunderstorm warnings that stretch all the way across northeast Tennessee. The yellow boxes are going to be those severe thunderstorm warnings. That is where we still have winds capable of being up to around 60 miles per hour, if not greater. And we're still watching that potential opportunity for some rotation within these storms. So I'm not guaranteeing that we cannot have a spin up from these storms just because that tornado warning is going to expire at 4. Does not mean that we may not see another one before the morning is done. Now, areas south of I-40, we are looking at those significant weather advisories. So that is going to include parts of Sevier County, the southern half of Knox County, Blount County, Loudoun County, Ray County, Meigs County, McMinn County. When we are saying special weather statements, this is where we are going to continue to talk about wind gusts right below that severe qualification. So up to around 50 to 55 miles per hour still has the possibility of producing some damage, also down trees, power outages, and this is where we also have the concern for seeing up to penny-size hail. So there is that chance for some very small hail along some of these storms, not necessarily going to be getting up to severe level, but certainly going to be bringing in the possibility for some damage as well. Again, I have some great news for you folks. We're continuing to see the main impacts from these storms push their way through the area, so that is just kind of a relief, folks. I know that it's Memorial Day. I know for a lot of you, you may have the day off. Models, again, becoming a little bit more on track for what we're seeing. This is a look really within the next 30 to 40 minutes heading into the start of your morning. And guess what, folks? By sunrise, a lot of these storms are going to continue to slide their way out of the region. So they're going to be pushing their way off to the east, and then the rest of the day really doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be impactful. For those of you who, again, are hoping to get outside, hoping to enjoy your Memorial Day, we are continuing to see some good news. And with that being said, we do have that tornado watch that's in effect until 6 o'clock this morning, and that tornado watch is progressively starting to become less and less in coverage. We no longer have Fentress or Cumberland counties under that tornado tornado watch, which is a sign of these storms continuing to make their way out of the area. But you've just gotten to spend a good chunk of your morning with us into the overnight hours, which is why we can't emphasize enough, folks, to have your devices charged. Now, I am curious. It looks like this storm that we're seeing right now moving into the far southern valley, and you have to understand this area in particular did not have a lot of those strong storms yesterday. So around the Athens community, Sweetwater, Tellico Plains, although you do not have a severe thunderstorm warning in your area at this moment, I'm curious to see if this is the next area where we do have the National Weather Service issue a severe thunderstorm warning. Again, if you are watching, that tornado warning for Claiborne, Hancock, and Lee counties will be expiring at 4 o'clock this morning, but these storms are still very strong, moving into parts of Greene County, Cott County, Union County, Jefferson County, Claiborne County, where we do have multiple severe thunderstorm warnings that will be in effect through about mid-morning. So definitely been a busy overnight. Tavian and I have been covering these storms now for a while, Tavian, and we're still continuing to see a lot of this activity throughout the region.
Yeah, we definitely are. I just really quickly wanted to come into a full aerial view, really looking across most of the state of Tennessee to show you that things are starting to get better. Now, of course, we are still seeing some fairly intense impacts and still that tornado warning for about a minute and some change here in far upper East Tennessee. Those tornado warnings with that tornado possible tag, the special weather statements, all of those showing winds anywhere from 50 to 60 miles per hour, hail getting anywhere from penny to maybe half-inch size. But as we look further out into Middle Tennessee, there is some hope, right? We are watching this line of storms now moving into the southern line of the state, heading into parts of the Huntsville, Alabama area, going to be heading towards Georgia, parts of Atlanta, and of course the Chattanooga area as well. But like Rebecca had said, we have the tornado watch that was released from parts of Cumberland and Fentress County. That is because they are a part of the Nashville National Weather Service office, and they have fully relieved their entire area of both the tornado watch and of the flood watch as well. So right now the storm is now moving to the south. There's still some lighter rain, some heavier thunderstorms and heavier downpours that are coming through, but not to that same intensity. We look over into western Tennessee, we've got a lot of that clarity as well. So now we're looking down towards this Huntsville area where they've got those two tornado warnings as well, just to the northeast of Scottsboro, right along this northeastern corner for some of that activity that may be coming into the Chattanooga area. So that's a lot of what we've been watching in this time period. But I think we maybe are going to be wrapping things up in a little bit. Daniel, you want to talk to me just a moment? Yeah, okay. It sounds like we are wrapping, especially with that first tornado warning that has gone out of effect. So we will continue to keep you guys updated. Make sure you stay with us, have your alerts on for your phone. And again, we will see you in just a couple of minutes. 10 News Today starting in about 26 minutes.
We have a full report on the devastation and what Israel is saying about the strike.